Hello and welcome. I'm excited to talk to you today about Canva and specifically some things I've found work really well for saving time when you're working with a team. So when we're working with a team, whether that's a marketing team or a school team, an admin team, a business office team, an operations team, it doesn't matter. Whatever kind of team it is, whether you're in a school environment, a business environment, doesn't matter. I was just working with a university, and we were talking about a team that was constantly needing to put together materials that they were doing two different things with. They were using them internally within their team to just keep things organized and sharing and gathering everything in one place. And then they were taking some of those things and then transferring them and making presentations that they had to then present to leadership. Both cases, they were running into some stumbling blocks of how do they keep themselves organized, collaborate, what's the quickest way to make sure everybody has what they need. And so this is kind of out of those conversations of what are those quick things in Canva that everybody should know about to help you save some time. So that's where we're going in this quick 30 minutes together. My name is Nathan Wells, and I do work for a Canva education training partner. So let's jump in. What are we talking about? So we're going to get to know our Canva account just a little bit, make sure everybody's on the same page. We're going to talk about the brand hub and setting up those brand kits and then organizing your designs. Those couple of things right there are some quick wins that people can do, specifically your administrator or whoever's making sure that your Canva account is set up and everybody has the right permissions. Just a couple of things around brand kits and organizing and sharing the right things. Man, that can streamline some things. And then we'll talk about some collaboration and maybe some magic tools as we get going and have some time. So let's jump into some of that, getting to know your account. So when you open up canva.com, so just canva.com. And if you want to follow along, feel free, or you can come back and do it on your own later. You're going to come to this home page, and yours might look slightly different. It is all in context to the last things you've been working on. So if you were working on something that had to do with presentations, you're going to see some little icons, or not icons, some thumbnails, that's the word I'm looking for, under recent designs here that were the presentations you just worked on. You'll see my examples all have a green hint to them because that was the brand kit I was using in this example, right? So as we look along the design here, look along the page, you'll see I have recent designs and things that you're working on under projects. We have the template library, and this is where a lot of people really get started and get ideas, is these templates, and there are just so many amazing templates in Canva. Canva does such a great job of pulling to the surface really great things that help you get started. So you don't have to stare at that blank page. So many of us get kind of stuck on just looking at the blank page, like, what do I do next, right? So Canva helps us get started so we don't have a blank page. There's some apps and some other things, but we're going to talk about account management a little bit and look at our settings, and then we'll jump into some of this other stuff. So down at the bottom left, to account management, when you see your little initials, or maybe you see a picture, depending on how you've set it up, you should also see your initials. That's where we're going to go first. So when I click that, I can see, and then I'm going to click on settings. When I click on settings and I'm going to look at a couple of things. So in this example, the first option is profile. So you can add a picture, especially if you're in a larger organization, that can be super helpful to add a profile picture so everybody knows who it is that they're working with. There's some really great things under accessibility. So if you've never looked in this section, I would highly advise you look in there specifically at accessibility. One of my favorite things in accessibility, I'm going to change my screen real quick and demo this. So under accessibility, so I'm going to go to settings, your profile is where I'm at, right? And if I go to accessibility, one of the things that's really helpful is some people really like the light and dark mode and high contrast colors can be helpful, specifically for different folks that have different disabilities with vision or vision issues, specifically the lighting that's in the room around you. Sometimes that can mess with it. And so high contrast colors might be helpful. One of the things I love, though, is if you ever create videos or if you ever do an audio recording in Canva, you can turn on this feature, and you have to go in and turn it on. But when you turn on captions, it automatically will caption everything you create. So I think that's a fantastic feature that's worth everybody knowing about. And then there's some other things in here that might be helpful for you as well, but that's under accessibility. So light mode, dark mode, high contrast, shortcuts, if that's helpful for you, autoplay videos, but those captions I think is really helpful. The other thing I want to point out while we're in here is if you want AI to use memory. So a lot of us don't think about Canva and AI. We think about ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and Copilot and all these other ones that are out there, Perplexity. But AI in Canva is actually really powerful and really good too. And we're not going to get into that in this session today. I actually have another webinar later this fall, we will. But when you use that, you can decide right here, and it is on by default, if you want Canva to save and then reference later the things that you have already asked, already discussed with it in your AI queries that you've given it. And then you can also go back and delete certain memories. And then you can also manage people. So people management here is who is an admin, who's on which team. You can break them into smaller groups and then give the whole group a permission to be an editor, a viewer, a whole group to be an administrator or a brand creator. We're going to talk about brand kits in a second. And so just handling those permissions. Now you have to be the admin of the Canva tenant for your organization for this to be an option for you, but you can do that here. And then the other thing is SSO provisioning. So if you are a Google system, a Microsoft system, or whatever it is, you have a single sign-on option. You can set that up here. Same with web domains. You can tie it to your domain, so it's easy. And then you can look at permissioning and usage reports, which I think can be really helpful. So I just want to call those out as we're getting going. So let's jump back into where we were. So I talked about some of these. This is the light mode, dark mode. You can adjust those high contrast colors. I always talked about the captions. And then some other things in there, right? So I talked about that a little bit. So let's look at this. So if you are looking at setting up a brand, let's talk about what that means. A brand, all that means, if you're not in marketing or you're not in a position where you usually think about, oh, we have a brand, especially those of us that come from education. I was a seventh grade social studies teacher. I didn't think about our brand, right? Like that wasn't something I thought about, but we did. So my school, the last school, I'll use the last school I taught at. I taught at two different schools. The last school I taught at, for example, we were the Hawks. So we had a red was our main color, and then there was a gray and a black. So that was our brand, right? There was the official Hawk logo with the red sweater, right? That said Mountain View on it. That was my school's name. And that is part of our brand. So we can set up those kits that then can be used by everybody in the school. It could even be students if you're in a school environment. If you're in a business environment, it can be everybody across the org. And then the brand controls, just want to call out, are admin only. So you can decide, back when we talked about permissions a second ago, if you set somebody as an admin, they have those brand controls, meaning who can make changes, who can add to and take away from the brand, templates and kits. So this is what it looks like. So over on the left-hand side, you're going to see design elements and brand anytime that you are inside of a design. So when you're in a design, you can always click on brand and then immediately find the logos that the brand kit has been set up, the colors that have been set up to go with that, fonts, other assets that have been added to that, and lots of things in there. You can also set up what are called brand templates. Brand templates could be like a presentation template that already has the main colors and pictures that are approved, fonts that you want to use, certain types of slides that are already set up. For social media and marketing, you could have the default kind of template that you always want to have set up and used, set as your brand already ready to go. And so I'll show that in just a second. So let's set these up. So when I want to do this, I can add my brand's logo and colors, photos, and some graphics. So example here is I can go into the color palettes and I can find the colors I want. And so there's a bunch that Canva has, and you can just decide, I want to use this group, these color palettes, Canva calls it, and you can add those straight from Canva and add them into your brand kit. Or if you have a very specific color, you can do that. So where's this at? So over here on the left-hand side, I have home, projects, templates, and brand. So when I click on brand, we have a few in here, but I'm just going to create a new one as an example. So when I go to brand kits, I can click add new. This is going to be our example brand kit. Click create. So here I can drag in a logo that I have saved on my computer somewhere, and then here's the colors. So I can add in colors that if you have the hex code, if you have it as a different way, right? The other color numbers, you can bring that in. Or if you have something on your computer, like the logo, you can use the color picker. So for example, if I have this already saved, let's just grab this one. Let's use the tent. So let's say I'm going to use this tent as my logo. So let's say that's our logo. If I wanted to, notice what Canva did. It immediately looked at the logo I just added and grabbed 3 colors and then gives me an option. Hey, do you want to use these colors out of that? That's pretty cool, right? That saves you some time. So I'm gonna say, yeah, that's amazing. Yes, please. And so I can keep those, and then I can delete this one if I don't want to use that one, right? And then I can add more. So there's actually more colors in there. And so what I wanted to show you is that the color picker, I can actually go in here and find those little accent colors. So in this case, I'm gonna grab that like little reddish color. There we go, orangish color. And so that can be one of my accent colors. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to use color pick and I'm going to get that brown up at the top. Let's get that brown. There we go. So that's one way you can grab some of the colors if you're don't have anything like the preset or you don't know the hex code, right, of the colors. You can go and grab those like that with the color picker. Or like you saw Canva when you drop in an asset, in this case, like the logo or another picture that you want to use all the time. Canva's pretty smart and it will drop in those colors for you. So I can do that again. So I can upload another logo if I have something. I was thinking I had another one I was going to use as an example, so I apologize. I don't know where it is. Here, I'll use this leaf. So when I drop this in, again, Canva is going to look at that and it's going to grab, it only grabbed 2 colors. There's actually a 3rd color on there, but that's okay. And I can say, yeah, I want to keep that. So that's kind of cool, right? So every time you drop a picture in there, it's going to grab those and bring it in for you. So that's kind of a cool example of how it can do that. The other thing I can do is if I have a specific font. So if I know every time there's a title, our preferred font is, let's just say Roboto. I can do that. And here's the size I prefer it to be, and then I can check that off. And then subtitle, I want to be that, right? So you can go through and define all of those. And then you can add a brand voice. So that's going to be a description. And then if you have other photos, graphics, icons, anything like that that you would prefer that people use consistently, you can add those here. And so then when somebody is inside of a project, so let's just open up a blank one. I'm just going to click on one of these icons. That will just open up for us a blank presentation in this example. Now, when I go to brand on the left-hand side, do the little drop down and open up my new one called example. Now I can click on that and immediately add it. And anytime I add, let's just add an element. So let's just say this circle, you see it automatically grabbed that color, but I can go back to brand. I can say, actually, I want the green, or I want whatever, right? So like it's helping me use these colors, and you see it said shuffle, but I can actually go into this circle, click the color. I'm going to use the colors out of my brand kit right here. So the brand kit I called example, that's why it says that. And then there's those, I can get those exact colors that I want, which is kind of cool. So that's how you can use the brand kit. So that's saving time, right? So then people in my organization don't have to guess. They don't have to go searching for the logo. It's right there. So look at saving time and setting things up. So now let's say me as the administrator, this presentation is the one. It doesn't look like it, but let's say this is the one. This is the one I want them to always use. Maybe I create a couple of slides, right, that are set up and have some, they have a title in there. They have a heading in there. That's why is the heading bigger than the title? That's kind of funny. So they have the heading, they have a subheading, and then they have some text boxes. And maybe the text box is bulleted, and I'm going to do like 3 of those. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So that way, this is going to be like my example that somebody could use when they're creating a presentation. And this last one's going to have the Leaf logo in it for whatever reason. Okay, so this is now my brand example. So now, if I want to save this to my brand, I can now save this because I am the admin. I can add this. So I'm going to put this as example brand template. When I go back to the beginning, go to brand setup, I go to brand templates, I can click add new, and it's going to ask me, what do I want to add in? I'm going to say presentation. I can grab the presentation, not create. I want to add the presentation I already have. And then I can do some other things as well. Let me refresh so it brings up that new one. That's a problem. Okay, it wasn't bringing up that new one. So I could add this then to my brand because I hadn't refreshed my screen. So now I can move that over and add that to my brand kit. So we can do some cool things with that and get those saved. Now, if I want to add some other things to this, so let's look at some other examples while I'm doing this. So you can set up your brand template. We talked about colors. We talked about setting up those different things. Now, some other features that we see sometimes folks come up with as questions. So I'm going to X out of my presentation here so you can see this. This is another one where people get stuck sometimes. And so this is just a quick little tidbit, just so you know. Whenever you're in a situation like this, so this blob is something I want to use, but there's letters behind it. Always look for position and then look for layers. A lot of times it's on a range and you can't really see what to do with it. If you go to layers, you can see, oh, what I want is actually right behind it. So I can move this down one, and now I have that layer that I wanted. So I don't want to go too far, right? If I go behind the blue, now all of a sudden it's all the way back, and I don't want that. But now I can rearrange those. The other thing is if I want to size these in context of each other, I can hold down the Shift key on my keyboard or click and drag. And you notice how my little purple box, every time it touches the next text box, it selects it. So same thing, I can hold Shift on my keyboard and click, and each time I click, they're now all together. So I can do one of two things. I can click group, or I can just grab the little corner, and you notice it's now changing the size. And even though they're different sizes originally, it's changing them in context. So they all stay within the percentage, I should say, of what I originally had. And I can also click group. And so now even if I click away and come back, I have that same option. So they're always going to be together, which is helpful. And then I can go back and center it. And you notice that purple line, the dead center of my screen, whenever I'm moving this around, that's going to tell me when it's in the dead center of the square that I'm working in. So you notice I'm in this black square. That's the dead center of what I'm looking for. It's not going to be in the dead center, whoops, of the screen itself. That would be over here. But I want the center of this black square. There it is. And then same thing, I can go down until I get to the center. There it is. And then I get those guides. Those purple lines are the guides that help you with that. If you're ever looking for more guides than that, I just thought of this, but I'm going to add it. If you're ever looking for more guides, you can go to File and look at Settings and click Add Rulers and Guides or Add Guides. So I'm going to go to Rulers and Guides and look at that. Now I have these rulers up here at the top, and you have these guides on the screen, and you can move these. So if you know, I want to line things up at the top of that Y right there, and then now I can move this up until it clicks right with that Y. So that way, visually, everything across the screen is lined up with that. You can use those types of guides, and you have full control just by clicking and dragging on that line. You can use these guides. There's vertical ones and horizontal ones, however you want. And then when you're done, you can go back to settings and turn off. There's also, if you saw it under settings, there's a keyboard shortcut. I'm on a Windows computer, so it's Shift R. So Shift R turns them on, Shift R turns them off. So that's just a little tidbit I actually hadn't planned on showing, but I think it's a helpful one if you're really into like making sure things line up and all work together. It's a good little tidbit. And then some other popular things that people ask about, or that once people see, they're like, oh my goodness, that was amazing. I wish I would have known that. So I'm just going to show quickly some of the magic tools. So for instance, this little astronaut right here, I can move him over here. But how did I do that originally? How did I get him there? So let's move him out of the way. So right now, he's a part of this picture. If you didn't know, you can click on any image. This is a photo, so let's be specific in our language. This is a photo. If I go to the word edit in the little context toolbar up here and go over to magic grab, the hot air balloon, it's going to look across my image, and then it's going to say, hey, you can grab this. And I can then click on him and click the word grab. Now I can take him, there we go, and move him around, which is kind of cool. It's giving me a hard time here. I don't know if that's my mouse or what. That must be my mouse. So I can move him around and redo where he is and what position he's in. So I'm using the arrows on my keyboard. Just, I know it's a little bit slower, but at least you can see what it does. And so then I can have him float across. So it's like he's going from the Earth to the moon, which is kind of funny. And so that's kind of fun. The other thing you can do is remove background. Now this is one that's been around a while, so you may have seen this one before, but I can click on any image and they added it right here. It's also under edit, but it's right there in that context toolbar where I can click remove background and ta-da, which I thought was clever. And then magic eraser. So let's say I have this friend's photo here and I don't want to remove the background. I want to keep the clouds, but I'm going to use this purple with the fries here. I want to get rid of these birds. So I'm going to make my eraser just a little bit smaller. And I don't want the silly pigeons in my photo. Get out of the photo, pigeons. I can click erase, right? And so then it gets rid of those and it uses AI to fill in the gap. Oh, we have a wing left. It's kind of funny. And it does a fantastic job. So you would have never even known those birds were there, right? Which is kind of crazy. And so then I can go back out and I have this great photo. So you can use those. So think about context, right? What is your position? What do you work in? How would that be helpful in what you're doing? Whether it's cleaning up a photo just to post on social, is it cleaning up a presentation so there's not a distraction? So when you're presenting it, there's not this distracting thing that would pull the attention away from those you're presenting to, right? So that's sometimes an issue. Maybe there's somebody extra that doesn't need to be in the photo because of privacy, right? So you don't want them to be in the photo because they've asked not to be a part of it, or just privacy wise, you can't have kids in the photo or whatever it is, right? Families, you could use something like that to remove those that don't need to be in it, which is kind of cool. And then quickly, as we wrap up, I want to make sure that we're looking at organizing. So something that I feel like gets overlooked for some reason in Canva is folders. We think about Google Drive, OneDrive, just on our computers. We've been using folders for decades. But for whatever reason on Canva, I feel like it gets overlooked a lot. And so it's good to start early. And if you've been using for Canva a while, need to go back, you can. It's just harder sometimes to go back. But I highly recommend under projects, you'll see I have some started here. Go in and create some folders. So you can click the plus. So again, I'm under projects on the left-hand side. I went back to the home screen. If you're not sure how to go back to the home screen, let me step that back just a little bit. So at any point, you can use these three lines at the top left and click home, or I could jump straight to projects. That's always an option. So you always have these options on the left from no matter where you are, no matter what design I'm in, I can go to the three lines and click on those and jump to where they are. Now, the way I usually prefer to do it personally is Canva automatically opens new internet tabs. If you can see the top of my internet browser. And because I have this design in the second internet browser, I actually would prefer to jump to the first one because I know that's where I already was. So that's where I'm going to go. So I clicked on projects. I'm going to click plus, new folder. The other thing I want to point out while I'm here is you can also click import. So if you are a Google Drive, OneDrive, or Dropbox user, you can import and straight bring in from there. So you're not downloading and uploading or downloading, copy and paste, right? Like you don't have to mess with any of that. Instead, you can just import straight from that file structure that you're already using. So if you have a document, you have pictures, you have presentations, whatever it is, you can import those straight across and then use them in whatever you're doing here, which is pretty amazing. So I click the plus, I'm gonna click new folder, and then now I can organize. So let's say this is gonna be our team presentations, and I can share it with a team. I don't have to. But when I start this folder, so it's empty right now, I can do a couple of things. One thing I'm gonna recommend though, is you can click share and then you can share a link. But what I would recommend is actually typing in people's names or the name of a group. So again, go back to the beginning of the webinar. I can set up groups, or my admin can set up groups in settings. You can set up groups right here. So that's super helpful. And then when people are going to share, they can use those group names to share to an entire group. I'm trying to tie that back in to what we were talking about before. The other thing that's super helpful is I can star this. Whenever a folder, or go back a step, a presentation is starred, it is added to this kind of center little area right here on the left that pops out. And so now your starred folders and designs are always right here. So quick access. So whether I'm in home, they're right there. I'm in templates, not in templates, I guess. Well, I can go to starred content and then I'll see them. And then when I'm in a design as well, I can go to and see my, if I go to projects, I can see my starred content as well, which is kind of cool. So I can find all of that from there. So there's starred right there, and I can go back in. So I can find all of those things in one place, which is really handy. So, all right, that was really quick, but hopefully that gave you some ideas. So thanks for hanging out with me for a few minutes and kind of hopefully getting you some ideas and some different ways you can be using Canva. So thanks for hanging out. If you'd like to stay connected with us and learn more about the other webinars we have coming up, right now we're doing about 2 a month, and I'm kind of rotating between AI and the way we're using AI, whether in business or in education, and Canva. And Canva is going to be a little bit more focused on education moving forward. So love to have you join us for these other opportunities, but you can always find us in these different social environments at Phygital Labs, or you can also go to phygitallabs.com/subscribe and join our newsletter to find out even more.